Hey guys, it's just me, Lance, again. So I'm back down at Frankston Hospital where it all begun. So I thought I'd make a quick video because every single day for the last 12 months, I see in the comment section people asking me what happened to the guy making videos exposing empty hospitals. And then I get inboxes every single day, people asking me why I've changed my narrative, why I've changed my tune. And it's too many messages and comments to reply to. So I thought I'd just make this video and then hopefully those people see it and stop pestering me as to why I've had a change of heart. And, well, first thing is, why was I making the video? I seen some news reports where I believe they were exaggerating how busy hospitals were. I spoke to a few nurses, I even managed to speak to a director of nursing who told me that, well, firstly, the 12-hour shift was a standard shift. And in terms of getting no breaks and whatnot, I heard that some weren't even getting work because elective surgeries were off and they weren't getting as many shifts as usual anyway. So I came down here, did one video, then I drove around to every hospital I could find and they were quiet. They were really, really quiet. And so I blame that dodgy news reporter for that. I blame them because they, you know, the news, the news channels, they've got a big responsibility. You know, if they lie to the people and the people catch on to it, well, then you lose them. And then when you've got to tell them real important information, they ain't going to listen anymore. As you've seen now, we've got hundreds of thousands of conspiracy theorists that just don't believe a word the media say. So, you know, the media have got a big responsibility. And then what does that do? That gives rise to all these online, you know, citizen journalists that have popped up out of fucking nowhere, selling t-shirts and asking for donations for legal fees and all this crap. But also, you know, Sky News, you know, you got to blame them as well. I mean, if you watch Sky News, you know, they're very good, they're very professional, and what they do is they raise doubt. That's what they do. They raise doubt, and they do it very well, you know, because they have these sophisticated stories where they're showing graphs and stats, which they manipulate and cherry pick. But anyway, and they, you know, find a scientist, an expert that suits their narrative, you know, and put that. They don't flat out deliberately lie. They're smart, but they raise doubt, and they do it very fucking well. And to all us lay people watching Sky News, you come away from watching Sky News with a bad taste in your mouth, you know. And what ends up happening is they raise so much doubt in your mind, and then before you know it, you just start to believe the whole thing is a pandemic. You don't believe in it. You end up becoming a conspiracy theorist because of you know Sky News and also all the, you know, Morgan Jones and all the other conspiracy online influencers, you know, citizen journalists. So it's despicable. But I'll tell you what, first thing that made me wake up was the influencers, because I got a lot of views. Back then when I was talking against the Rona and against the government, I was getting, you know, heaps and heaps of views. Now I get fuck all views. So other influencers were contacting me, wanting me to join. And then once I started, so I didn't even know what an activist was. I had no idea. I just came down here and made a video. I wasn't an activist. Now I'm an activist. Now I'm an anti-scamming activist, officially. But I just came down here. I didn't even know what an activist was. I hadn't seen any of those online people. But they all started contacting me, wanting me to join. Then I started looking into them, and then I see that they've been at this for many years with different subjects, you know. And then I see that they're all asking for money, all selling merchandise. I see they've monetized it. I'm like, what? That's a bit suspicious. You know, and time went on and I just kept looking into all the activists and watching and learning. And it wasn't long until I realized that activists in Australia are absolutely corrupt. They lie more than mainstream media, 10 times more. They're not bound by, you know, even Real Rushkin. I know everyone loves Real Rushkin. He tells everyone that he's telling the truth where media lies. Well, he's not even bound. He's not even governed by the press council like normal journalists. So, you know, they at least have a governing body that pulls them up if they go too far with their fibs. But all these citizen journalists, they're bound by nothing. So you probably should trust them even less, you know. And I mean, think about it this way. If you believe that the mainstream media are able to brainwash and convince, you know, millions and millions of Australians into lies, well, then wouldn't you have to also use that same logic when it comes to the citizen journalist? Wouldn't you have to put that same logic? See, everyone's at war now. Everyone's at war. You either believe in the mainstream narrative or you believe in the activist and Sky News, you know? And there's no in between. And people, you know, they really staunchly defend whichever side they're on. And But I mean, if you follow the activists like Morgan Jones that say the whole thing's all a hoax, and you believe that the mainstream media are lying completely, well, think about it. If the mainstream media are so good at lying and able to convince millions and millions of people into their lies, well, then you have to use that same logic with the online influencer or Sky News that you listen to. Are they doing the same thing to you that they've done to the millions of other people? I hope you catch my drift. So, food for thought, as they say. So anyway, back to why I've changed my narrative. It also, what really set me off on Sky News, this is a long time ago, was when they were saying, as well as you'll see all the activists saying it, that lockdowns cause increased suicides, right? Makes sense, of course it would go up. So I seen Ellen Jones screaming about the suicides through the roof. Anyway, so I went and looked up the suicide rate. Actually, I got fucking a smart person to look it up. Found where you get the stats. Turned out there was no stats because they're only released annually. So there was no stats. So what Alan Jones was talking about at the start, I've no idea where he got those stats from because they're released annually. Anyway, months later, the suicide stats came out. Guess what? It was actually down by 2. Actually down. I was like, well, hang on a minute. Alan Jones is telling everyone lockdowns have increased suicides. But in fact, it was down, only by 2, but it was down. So that's when I realised that Alan Jones is an extremely dishonest person. He's a master manipulator. He's good at what he does. He's been doing it for a long time. He's a master con artist. He's not the only one, but he's got to be one of the best. I mean, you see all the activists all share his content and go on his shows and whatnot. So, he's got a lot to answer for because what he's done is he created a lot of extremists and a lot of conspiracy theorists. He's driven the conspiracy movement and vaccine hesitant. He drives it. People, not just him, but he's one of the big drivers of vaccine hesitancy and people that think that the virus doesn't exist. I mean, 18 months on, you know what I mean? If you still think it's fake, I mean, you're bloody nuts. You're absolutely nuts. So anyway, so that's why I've changed my tune. And the other funny thing as well, people are still saying that the lockdown causes more suicides than what it saves. So, the suicide rate just came out again recently. It still hasn't moved. It's the same. Attempts are through the roof. Yeah, and I think like 180%. So that's horrible, obviously. But that's not what the influencers are saying. The influencers aren't all saying suicide attempts are through the roof. That's not what they're saying. They're saying suicides are through the roof. Well, they're not. Suicides are not through the roof. It's just more propaganda from these online grifters. And they do what they do. All the activists you watch, you show me an activist that hasn't somehow monetized their activism. They're despicable people. And they've been at it for a long time. Look into the backgrounds of any of the activists. But you know what? The problem is people that follow Morgan Jonas and Reignite Democracy, all the different groups. There's so many, too many to remember. The people that follow these, they're invested. And they're literally invested, as in they've been giving them donations. So that's why they hate me so much. The followers of all these groups hate my guts. I get threats every day on the inbox. And they hate my guts because I'm exposing their hero for the frauds that they are, and they can't handle it. They cannot handle it. You know what I mean? They don't want to know that the person they've followed for 18 months, given money to, listened to, is actually completely full of crap. It's too much to bear, so it's better to hate the people that call them out and expose them. That's what's happening here. And it's also the fact that they give them money is the followers of like RDA, for instance, they're actually literally invested. They're literally invested. They've handed over money. And that's one of the, that's a good little trick of the scammers, yeah? Because then you've got them. Once they're giving you money, they're invested. They're invested spiritually and financially invested. So, they become biased and they'll then overlook when they see the hypocrisy of all the different groups. I mean, look at the groups. They all started off anti-lockdown activists. Then they were anti-mask activists. Now, conveniently, all of the anti-lockdown activists that you see on the internet, now what are they? What are they now? Anti-vax activists, because they want to prolong this. Most of these people, before the pandemic, they were broke, you know what I mean? They had shit lives, they're from the outer suburbs, and for the first time in their life, they got money, they got fame, and they need to keep this going. They need to prolong the pandemic. They need to keep this rort going. It's the best thing that's ever happened to them, right? Now, if everyone gets, vaxxed and the vaccine works and we get out of restrictions, what are they going to do, right? They have to come up with a new narrative, right? And some of them have had stuff before. You look at Morgan Jonas and some other ones, they were activists for other subjects before, but this is the best thing that's ever happened to them. They've gotten real famous. They've got people just throwing money at them, heaps of money, millions of dollars between them all. They need to keep this thing going. Now, it's the best thing that's ever happened to them. Now, the vaccine, what will that do? The vaccine will work, right? Yes, it has a few adverse reactions, big deal. It's minuscule, right? And if you're a true patriot, if all these people reckon they're patriots, if you're a patriot, you'd take the minute risk of a adverse reaction for the good of your country. So all the anti-vaxxers, you are not patriots, you are actually all traitors. I'll say that with absolute pride. Anti-vaxxers are traitors to our country. They are not patriots, not one of them, because they won't even take the minute risk of an adverse reaction. They're not patriots, they're traitors, the whole lot of them. But you see, the people behind it, all the leaders, they want to prolong this. Now, the vaccine would work and get us out of lockdown. Then what? Then what do they do then? They can't be anti-vaxxers anymore. They can't be anti-lockdown activists anymore, right? Because it'll be all over. They have to come up with a new narrative. So these people are evil. And they know by, Morgan Jonas and all these people, they make these videos, they do all this content, they create all this hesitancy, right? They create so much vaccine hesitancy and so much distrust in the media and the government, keep people excited, keep people protesting and donating and whatnot, and then it prolongs it. So they're actually, that's pretty despicable. So you're actually prolonging a pandemic by creating vaccine hesitancy to keep your little grift alive, right? To stay where you are. Because, look at Ralph Fernandez. He's loving this. He didn't get views like this. He's famous now. He walks around a protest today. He's famous. He's fucking loving it. So of course they want this to continue for as long as possible. Of course they want it to continue. It's in their best interest. And what's the best way for the lockdowns and for the pandemic to continue? Vaccine hesitancy. So people don't get the vaccine. So I think I'll leave it at that. Fuck, 12 minutes. Sorry, guys. I hope that answers all your questions on why I've changed my tune. And I hope that completely answers all your questions so you don't have to keep inboxing me and ask me why I've changed my tune. But I'll finish on this. That the message is, if you've got half a fucking brain, 18 months on, if you still think that it's a hoax, you're a bloody idiot. And you need to wake up and you need to look into all the activists that you watch online. Do they profit from this? Do they have any financial and personal gain to what they're doing? Keep that in mind. I'll leave it at that. See you guys.